Good afternoon. My name is Howell Woltz. I'm speaking to you from Warsaw, Poland, where I now live and write. I recently published a book that has become an international bestseller, much to my surprise, called Justice Restored: 10 Steps to End Mass Incarceration in America. If someone had told me years ago that I could write a book talking about anything like that in the United States of America, I would have argued with them. But that's what's happened. I remember when I was in college in 1973, a bombshell book hit the West. It was exposing the Gulag Archipelago, as Alexander Solzhenitsyn called it, of slave labor camps spread all across the Soviet Union, where innocent people in many cases, in fact most cases, were forced to work for state enterprises, providing labor and service to the government, and they've been denied due process of law. Now that system was abhorred by the West, and after Solzhenitsyn exposed it, other nations started putting pressure on the Soviet Union to clean up its act. Ultimately led to President Reagan shouting at Gorbachev, "Tear down that wall." And they did. But they first of all were turned into a pariah by the expose that I think goes back all the way to Solzhenitsyn saying, this is what's happening, and he wrote it from the inside of the system. He was incarcerated and knew firsthand what had gone on. And the 3-volume set, those were his stories, and those are the people with whom he was imprisoned. Following that example, I've written about the new largest system of mass incarceration, not only in the world, but in human history, and that one is now in America. 71 million Americans have now been imprisoned that are still alive. 58 million of those were denied basic due process rights guaranteed under the U.S. Constitution by its founders. Very many similarities. The United States, with only 5% of the world's population, now imprisons 25% of the people in jails. Now, there's a big movement about prison reform, but as Solzhenitsyn understands, and as I understand, because I also wrote this from the inside of the system, denied due process of law, held for 7 years without ever being tried or convicted by any court of jurisdiction. The same thing is happening in America, and I have exposed how they're doing it, but also trying to be more positive. I've also detailed exactly how we can end the system of mass incarceration in America. Fortunately, all we have to do is go back to rule of law. We need to force the government and courts to start living by the Constitution once more and due process of law and protections of United States citizens' rights guaranteed still by the Constitution, but ignored by the courts and prosecutors. One quick note, though, that you'll find surprising in the book, detailed, is that in America, the slave labor camps aren't serving government or the public. They're serving Fortune 500 companies such as Dell, Compaq, Hewlett-Packard, Macy's, Pierre Cardin, Revlon, Target stores, on and on and on and on. The list will shock you, where prisoners in America are not given a choice. You can either work or you go to solitary. I know from experience. And you are now working for billion-dollar companies at slave wages, or $5 a month. I was paid that at one point. So I know what I'm talking about. I lived it, and I have now cataloged it. I have had to move abroad because of the pressure to quit speaking out about it. But I want you now to help me spread the word like we did for Solzhenitsyn 40, 50 years ago. And I want you to have your leaders and legislators and people at the United Nations know what's going on in the so-called land of the free, because only public pressure from outside of Washington, D.C., from the world, saying, wait a minute, what are you doing? You've got to stop that. Let these people go. Tear down those walls. We need your help to spread the word and put the pressure on the United States to live by the system on which it was founded and the one it now is trying to force on the rest of the world at the end of a gun barrel. They need to fix things at home first. Anyway, I hope you'll buy the book. Again, it's on Amazon or at www.justicerestored.com. And I thank you for your time.